Hi, I'm Peggy Farron. Welcome to the Understand Photography Show, where we talk about travel, nature, and fine art photography. We are going to be talking with Joe Fitzpatrick about photography in Everglades National Park, which is where we live down here, very close, so it's an exciting topic for us. The Understand Photography Show is first a podcast, so that's why we don't have any visuals, if you're wondering about that. You can listen to us on iTunes or Stitcher or however you listen to podcasts. If you leave us a review on iTunes, we really appreciate it. It helps us come up in the search engines. But we also do the behind the scenes as a video, and we put it on YouTube and also on Facebook. And in fact, on Fridays, we air on Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. We do a Facebook watch party. So if you'd like to watch along with us and comment, that'd be great too. And that's be on facebook.com/understandphotography. And while you're there, while you're on our Facebook group, go ahead and join one of our groups. We have 2 Facebook groups where you can interact with other people who think like you do. The first one is just a general group. It's called the Understand Photography Group. And you can post pictures, you can ask for critiques, you can ask for business advice. It's a very general group for photographers. Joe Fitzpatrick started Monochrome Mondays and whatever Wednesdays, so you can post with that theme. It's just a very general group, very nice, safe place. Any hostile people, we don't like that. The other group is called Selling Your Photography as Art, and that is kind of a support group. We give advice on, you know, how to market your art, what should I do for my first art show, how do I get into a gallery, how do I license my work? That's the kind of stuff we talk about in that group. So facebook.com/understandphotography, and you'll see our groups down at the bottom on the left, I believe. So Joe Fitzpatrick works here at Understand Photography. He is our lead instructor. Joe is a nature and landscape photographer mostly. He does cityscapes too pretty well. He's pretty doggone good. He is a Lightroom guru, so if you aren't subscribed to our YouTube channel, be sure you are, because we do Tuesday photo tips, and a lot of those are Joe's tips on Lightroom. It's a mix of stuff, so Tuesday, they're usually 3-minute videos, so they're real quick. Joe also is the reason that I got into leading, or I should say Understand Photography got into leading photo tours, because it was his idea. And, well, actually, it was Ed's idea, wasn't it?
No, it was mine.
It was yours? Okay. But he and a guy named Ed did our very first tour to St. Augustine back in 2010, and we've been doing tours ever since. But Joe is he has a very popular tour that he does, well, so far 3 times this year, and then we do day trips into Everglades National Park. So we're going to talk about photography in Everglades National Park. So welcome, Joe Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Peggy. Good to be here.
So it was your idea, huh?
Yeah, basically.
Because Ed's the one who brought it up to me.
Yeah.
He's like, you should do photo tips. And I'm like, I don't have, or tours. I'm like, I don't have that kind of time. He's like, Joe and I will organize the first one. And that's how it all began.
Yeah, so well, we went from there.
Yeah.
It worked out well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've been all over the place now. Cuba.
Yeah, pretty much.
Everglades about 1 million times.
Yeah.
1 million.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, most of the animals down there know me by name now.
Yeah.
They wave as I come in, you know, the gators and the possums and all that kind of stuff. And a couple Panthers, they all know me, you know.
Yeah. So tell us just what's the draw of the Everglades for photographers?
It's a unique place. It's unique on the planet. The ecosystem down there is like nowhere else, and there's a variety of ecosystems. So it's a great place to photograph because you have all these interesting views that you can get nowhere else. You know, pretty much every place has mountains somewhere, big or small, but there's mountains, or there's this, or there's that. But the Everglades is the only place where you have that river of grass, and then you have some of the other things, the mahogany hammocks and the cypress domes, and we'll talk about all that stuff. But there's all these different views you can get. But what really ties it all together is the clouds we have in the Everglades, or in Florida in general. So it adds drama because most of these landscapes are flat. You know, it's like the Midwest as far as it's just flat.
Right.
You know, anything that's higher than 3 feet in Florida is somebody laying down, you know. or a garbage dump.
I was going to say the landfills, those are our hills.
Landfill, yeah. If you're in South Florida, you see a mountain, it's a landfill.
Yeah.
But so with the clouds add the drama you need to counteract the landscape. So it really makes a nice mix.
So what's better about our clouds than the clouds in Ohio?
Well, we get these dramatic thunderclouds for half the year, and then in the winter, because it's very clean down here and very clear because we have the Gulf on one side and the Atlantic Ocean on the other, so you have a constant flow across Florida. So it's like a big island that way. It's always being swept clean from the air, so the air is very clear. And we get some nice cloud formations in the summer. I don't know the physical reasons we do, but we do get nice clouds. If you get out a lot of places like Arizona and that, they have these beautiful blue skies, but they're just blue. And, you know, it becomes boring after a while.
That's why they need the mountains.
Yeah, basically, just to put something in there. We have both, so we can do all kinds of stuff, you know.
Well, we don't have mountains.
No, I mean we have a landscape of sorts.
Oh.
You know, not a mountain landscape, but we have a landscape and we have clouds. You know. So
but the clouds, especially in the summer, what are they called? Thunder? Thunder something. Thunder something.
I call
you said it a minute ago.
Yeah. Whatever.
Anyway, but those things are awesome.
Yeah.
Those are the big white, puffy
they're
clouds.
Huge, puffy, cumulus, whatever they are. But anyway, you have these magnificent cloud structures that just are gigantic, and you get the light. You get early morning or early afternoon, and typically here, we get the thunderstorms in the afternoon. 3 o'clock or so, or you get them early in the morning. So you get nice angular light on them. So they even do it in the perfect light. It's like it's arranged. Okay, we'll have the clouds when the light's good. You know, so it works out well that way too. So we get all these contrasts between the clouds and where it isn't cloudy, the sky's a beautiful blue down here too. Really, it's an unreal blue almost. I'm always think back. There's one photo I entered in a competition, a PSA competition. And the judge was out in the Midwest somewhere that judged it. And I had taken this landscape and the sky, I hadn't tuned up the blue or anything, but it was so blue I said, it almost looks unrealistic, so let me take it down some. So I pulled the saturation down somewhat. So the guy's judging it, and he said, it's a really nice photo, but you've oversaturated the blue. Because he'd never seen how blue the skies are here. And I'm thinking, if he'd seen the way it really was, he would have been really upset, because I already desaturated it some to make it look more like what the blue would be like somewhere else.
Now, what is the challenge of photographing a landscape that's flat? What if you don't have any clouds?
Well, you know, most of these landscapes, like anything, or any landscape in general, you're always looking for leading lines or lines to draw your eye into the image and through the image. Okay, so even if it's a flat landscape, you're looking at a difference in features. Maybe there's water going through it, or a crack in mud, or a change in the way the grass is growing, or something like that. You're looking for some kind of leading line to take you through. Maybe it was a path made by animals that have flattened the grass or the foliage or whatever to lead you through. You're always looking for something to draw your eye into the image. And then back to whatever your central subject is. Maybe the central subject is just sawgrass and clouds, and you're being drawn back to the clouds. Or maybe you have a cypress dome back there, which is a stand of cypress trees, and they typically take an almost dome shape where they are. And that'll be your central subject. I was thinking earlier when I come down here, I didn't realize that I should have brought one of my Everglades photos down here that we could put up instead of this, but I didn't. So, you know, but I'll send one to put in the online thing if you remember. Heather, remind me, and I'll send a photo for that. That'll give you a good example of that, where it's a sea of sawgrass and then huge clouds in the back with very tiny, you can see a dome of trees back there. You know? So you have these, it's not all just flat landscape there. It depends on where you are in the Everglades. The Everglades has, I think, 8 or 9 unique ecosystems. Don't ask me to name them all, but it's not just all flat, this river of grass you hear about. We have that in certain parts. But there's other parts that are forested with cypress or something else. There's some places that are just more marshy than others. So there's a lot of different ones. We go from a freshwater prairie to some kind of a brackish marsh to a saltwater prairie, another kind of marsh, and then we have the cypress forest, and then we have the hardwood forest, all different landscapes in there. So there's a lot of that. And then of course you have the, after all that, you have the shoreline, and that's a different ecosystem in itself along the shoreline.
Yeah,
you get your wading birds there and things that you would normally expect to see there. So you get all this variety there. So it's really amazing.
Now let's talk.
And mosquitoes.
The state, what is that, the state bird?
That's the state bird, the mosquito.
Mosquitoes.
Yeah.
I looked it up once. I think we have 250 different species
I wouldn't be
of
surprised.
mosquitoes in Florida. I'm not positive, though. Don't
And what's terrible, some come out in rainy season, and some come out when it's dry. So depending on which you are, you get a different kind of mosquito. And then we have no-see-ums, which are tough first thing in the morning.
They're tough anytime.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, when you get them bad is right at sunrise or right at sunset or right after or before. That's when you get the no-see-ums, and they can be brutal.
And no-see-ums are biting fleas that you can't see.
Yeah.
By the way, the audience doesn't know.
So there is a jacket you can use to keep them off your arms and stuff at least.
Well, they have whole bug suits, not just jackets, but I know you and I both have a bug jacket and buff and hats and the whole kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, so specifically Everglades National Park. Okay, so there is the Everglades, but Everglades National Park is just is it a small part, a big part of the Everglades? How much of Everglades National Park is?
The park system is goofy because there's Everglades National Park, there's Big Cypress Preserve, there's 10,000 islands, there's Fakahatchee, which is a state park, and there's
Corkscrew is actually part of the Everglades.
Corkscrew, and the other state park where the big Derrick thing is that they built it.
Oh, Collier Seminole.
Collier Seminole. They're all Everglades. Okay, the Everglades is basically the whole southern part of Florida. Everything south of the Tamiami Trail, which runs across the state. Okay, Route 41. U.S. Route 41. That's all Everglades. Plus there's a lot more north going up into the central area, because originally what it was the Everglades was a sheet flow of water from Lake Okeechobee that flowed down the middle of Florida and then dumped out into the Gulf and to the Atlantic Ocean down at the bottom. And that was a huge wide sheet flow. And then over years, with people coming in and all, it got down. But that was all Everglades. What's the park now is the lower from 41 down and from about the middle of the state east to where you start running into a population going down. That's all part of Everglades National Park.
So it's huge.
It's 500,000 acres, I believe, something like that.
Wow.
I mean, it's just boggles the mind. Most of it is untouched. It's so big, there's areas that no one has ever been in. Maybe Indians 100 years ago or something like that, and there may still be some in there. It's unreal. There's two ways to access it with a car.
Okay.
There's a northern entrance in Shark Valley, which is off of the Tamiami Trail, Route 41.
And that's the closest to us on the west coast of Florida.
And basically, you go in there. Well, no, actually, there's one closer to us, the Everglades entrance, which is just water going in.
Oh, you mean Everglades City?
In Everglades,
oh, I forgot about that, because you have to go in by boat that way.
Yeah, Everglades City would be the furthest west access to Everglades National Park, and that's basically a big parking lot with boat ramps.
Yeah.
So then you can take your boat and go out into the 10,000 islands and what have you. Okay, and you can all the way go down, boat all the way down through the Everglades and what have you. So that's just an access point there. Your next access point would be Shark Valley, and there again it's a parking lot. You go into the parking lot, and then there's trails from there, and there's a tourist tram that'll take you on a ride through part of it to an observation tower and back. And that's an hour, hour and a half trip, I think, something like that.
On the tram?
Yeah, I think it's about that long, if memory serves me right.
And that's expensive, right?
Well,
I mean, it's $20-$30 to get into Shark Valley.
Yeah, well, I think it's 30 per carload now. Don't quote me on it though, because I have we have the pass that we use when we're working that we pay ungodly amounts of money for a year. So I'm not buying that.
So let's say it's about $30 to get in the car, but then I think it's $20 or $30 for each person on the tram too.
Yeah, I think it's a $20 trip.
So it's not. Yeah, so no, it's a national park, but you're going to spend some money.
If you're going in there with a family to take that tour, that tram, you're going to have spent some money in there. Yeah, to take the tram. But that's your entrance there, and that goes back maybe a couple miles where you can just easy access just walking. There's the tram, since it's in a big loop, that's paved, so you can walk along there. And walking on there, you can see a lot of wildlife. We usually see 6 or more different species of birds up close, alligators, of course, and that's basically what you see in there. You see the birds, you'll see the alligators, you'll see different kinds of turtles. And that's basically what you'll see. Rarely you might see a possum or something like that.
You got to be out at night for them.
Yeah, there's one trail there they call the Bobcat Trail, and apparently the Bobcats have never gotten the message, because I don't think anybody's ever seen one. But that's a nice place. If you're a visitor to Florida and you're staying in Naples or you're in that area there, it's an easy shoot to go to Shark Valley.
How long does it take from Naples to Shark Valley? By car.
over an hour.
It's over an hour.
Yeah,
I thought it was right about an hour, but
about,
more than that even.
A little more than an hour, I'd say. It's 2/3 of the way over to the other coast.
Oh, it's that
far. Or more, 3/4 actually, I guess.
Now let's continue into Shark Valley. So what about food? If I want to take a day, because if it's over an hour drive, I'm going to get hungry.
Okay.
Is there a concession stand in there or a restaurant?
No, there is not.
Not inside Shark Valley at all?
There is a souvenir shop
with some vending type of food.
And they have some vending kind of things. I mean, I think they have like ice cream bars and stuff like that, but there's no real food in there, which always amazed me. You would think there would be, but I don't know. But there isn't. The closest food there across the street on the north side of Tamiami Trail.
Right at the entrance, right?
Almost right at the entrance. There's a restaurant owned by the Miccosukee Indians, and you can get all kinds of food there, sandwiches
nice, good
and stuff
fried
like
food.
Oh, they have a lot of fried food. Ironically, they make a really good Cuban sandwich there.
Oh, I've never had it there.
I never had one there, and of course everybody, they usually have something that makes them, I wouldn't say they're dressed up like Indians, but they kind of have that look, I guess. So this one guy's waiting on me one time, and I had most of the other stuff, and I didn't feel like fried food. I said, "How's the Cuban sandwich?" He says, "Oh, it's pretty good." And I said, "Maybe I shouldn't have asked you being in India." He says, "Oh, no, I'm Cuban. I'm from Cuba." So that was, and the sandwich wasn't bad,
Yeah.
I always tell people it's the best food within 50 miles.
Yeah. All right, so if I'm going to Shark Valley, what am I going to photograph and when? Because Florida is a very seasonal place.
Right.
For birds, and the Everglades is very seasonal for what you're going to see.
Yeah.
So tell me what to do if I'm going in the peak season.
All right.
Well, December, January, February, March.
That's your peak season.
Why?
Well, it's comfortable to go there at that
it's not
time
too
of year.
hot.
It's not too hot. The mosquito population is down. And what happens in the winter, we have a dry season here in Florida, and where you get little or no rain. And what happens is the various ponds and everything start to dry up, which forces the wading birds into smaller they get more concentrated because they have less places to feed. So it concentrates them more, so you have more likelihood to see the different kinds of birds because they're more concentrated to where the water and the fish are. All right. Also in the winter, it's like I said, it's more comfortable. The backside is that you know, you don't have the dramatic thunderclouds most of the time, but you still have nice puffy clouds most days. The other thing there, why the winter? I mean, you have the comfort, you have the concentration of animals. You still have nice landscapes because it's not like most of this stuff here. There's still enough greenery in the winter that it makes it interesting. It's not like some of the places up north that it looks so barren and dead in the winter. We do have a seasonal change there in the color of the sawgrass and stuff, but it's still interesting colors because it's all gold and amber in the winter. It really makes nice scenes there. So. And
in the summer?
In the summer, then we have all the drama, the thunderclouds. We get a little more green. Everything is growing all year round, but you're going to have
reflections everywhere because it's so wet.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. When you have the water, you have the reflections.
Now the Everglades is unique in when it gets dry in the winter. I think the what do you call it? The sea level goes something down like 20 inches or something. It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, like most everything dries up.
It dries
up,
and
then it fills up in the summer.
Yeah. In the winter, when you've really had a dry winter and you lose most of the water where the sheet flow would ordinarily be, what you see is what's underneath it, which is mostly limestone, which is what's under all of southern Florida. but it gets exposed. So you have exposed limestone, and then you have like what looks like cracked mud kind of stuff. And that can make an interesting thing because then you start to get all these leading lines and stuff, you know, and you start to get that, and you can work with that. And this can change weekly, just depending on how much rain you have and what happens to the water level. It can change drastically on what you get if you're doing a landscape. Typically, last year we did 3 Everglades 4-day adventures, 3 weeks in a row. All 3 weeks, the landscape opportunities were completely different. They were all good, but it was like you were photographing a different place. What was good this week was terrible this week, but was terrible that week was now great because things changed. So it's a constantly shifting landscape too that you can work with. You do have to work with it, I mean, because the landscapes aren't immediately obvious. It's not, oh wow, there's that big mountain, let me put it in and I'll stand here and now I have Half Dome and I have Bridal Veil Falls and this is the view. It isn't quite as obvious unless you're really in the landscape and have been doing it for some time. And that's what we do on my workshops is I'm helping people see the opportunities they have here. And they can take that back and they can use it other places too. Because once you learn the techniques and what to look for, then you see them everywhere. But a lot of people say, oh, there's nothing to photograph there, and then they're amazed that
And the
there
first
really
thing
is.
you told us, you're looking for the leading lines to go into it.
I'm looking for leading lines. And if I don't see them, then okay, this isn't the place to photograph. But there's usually something there, a break in something, or the way that, and sometimes the leading lines are caused by the light. You know, if we come back 2 hours later, this shadow is going to be over here, and it's going to create a pathway and a leading line up through the scene. So it's even time of day when you go. That's why you're always going to find that you find people that are really good photographing a certain area that they're known for. A lot of that is because they have the opportunity being there to photograph it in different kinds of light at different kinds of year and everything else. And that's a big help.
Oh yeah, the more you're in a place, the more opportunities you see.
So,
in fact, that's an exercise, I've probably said it on the show many times, just sit in the same place and try to come up with different pictures. Because it's challenging, but all of a sudden, after you're bored out of your mind, you start seeing things.
Yeah, so there's a lot to see.
The composition education along with the just looking for stuff is helpful too, because you need something to anchor your picture. You know you need a leading line. You know how to divide your foreground, middle ground, and background for depth and things like that. What kind of equipment should we bring? Well, no, wait, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that.
Before we do that, while we were talking about the season and all, you know, the nice thing about that, the way it works in the Everglades, as you lose the water level and then you don't have all these beautiful reflections and stuff, the birds are getting more and more concentrated. So you have more wildlife to shoot.
Right.
You may have a little less landscape opportunities, but you have more wildlife opportunities, and it goes back from one to the other. So when you go, as long as you say, I'll shoot one or the other, you're good to go no matter what time of the year you go.
Now, the other thing, in the winter, we have more birds.
Yeah.
Because we have
our birds.
Migrating.
We have our birds plus everybody else's.
Exactly. Yeah. Although I did learn that migrating birds migrate all year round. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there's always something.
But we have
somewhere.
a lot of birds in the winter here. Holy moly!
Yeah, we have amazing variety.
Beautiful variety. It's crazy how many gorgeous birds we have. I remember when I first moved to Florida, which was a long time ago. It just seemed unreal. They were so exotic to me. So, all right, so before I get to gear and more things, tell me about the other entrance.
Okay,
because that's to the bigger part.
So we talked about Shark Valley, which is basically a little park. Now you go down.
Even though it's not a little park, but comparatively.
But I mean a little entrance. Now when you go down to the main entrance, or the lower entrance, or whatever you want to call it, okay, where the I think it's Coal Visitor Center, I think is what it's called, where you go into it. And the first thing.
And where is that?
That's below Florida City.
Florida City. So it's kind of near Miami?
Yeah, it's below Miami.
Okay.
It's below Miami.
All right.
It's right before you go into the Keys.
Okay.
Okay. So it's the southern tip of Florida. But you go into the main entrance, and interestingly enough, the visitor center is before the actual park entrance where you pay to get in.
That is weird.
Yeah, it is weird, but it's a beautiful place, and they have all kinds of interactive displays there, and the rangers there are extremely helpful, and they'll haul out a map and show you where to go and everything else. They give you a map like this one here that I have here, which is a fold-out, a real map that you can open up, and it shows you where everything is. And it's to scale. It's not one of these stupid tourist maps where it has pictures of stuff on it, but you don't
know how far away things are.
It's a real map that they've marked, so it's very useful to have. It's not that the map helps you know what to see as you go down, but it isn't. You only have one road, so it isn't like you're going to get lost with little feeders off to different things. But from the visitor center to the bottom tip of the park, where they actually have a campground down there, one of many, but they have a campground there where you can camp right on the bottom of the Florida with the Gulf right out there. It's amazing. It's about 40 miles from one end to the other.
And that's Flamingo. Okay.
You're way down at the bottom there. Originally there used to be a motel down there years ago, but I think it was Andrew, the hurricane, took that out, and they haven't rebuilt anything down there since, although there's talk about doing something down there in addition to the camping. So down there you have the shore wildlife you can shoot and what have you. You also have Eco Pond down there, which is a more inland pond. Right now that's not so good. The last hurricanes we had pushed all the salt water into that, and but now it's starting to come back and restore. And this last year I started to see some birds in there and some stuff. So it'll take a little while for that to come back. But that's all the way down the end. But let's go back up to the other end there where you first come in. After the visitor center, the place most people go, and they think they've seen the whole park, is the Mahogany Trail,
right,
which is where the visitor center used to be years ago as well. And that's a really nice boardwalk that takes you out into a lake and marsh kind of environment, and you're going to see all kinds of wading birds there. You're going to see alligators there. You're going to see moorhens and things like that there. You're going to see lots of black-headed vultures there. They're all over the place. And that's a nice place. You can get close-up shots of all the wildlife. You have some nice landscapes going out because you can see the prairie out there. So that's a really nice place. And a lot of times, like I say, a lot of places, that's as far as they go into there. They go in there, they spend an hour or two there and come back. when we go there, and when I go there by myself or I take a workshop, we go there first thing in the morning for sunrise, and we shoot sunrise there, and then we stay in at that area for an hour or two. You want to be out of there by 9:30 at the latest, because that's when the bus loads of kids start coming in.
Oh, and they all go to Anhinga Trail?
Well, they bus them down there, and that's pretty much where they take them to, you know. Now, there's nothing wrong with these kids. These kids are all that I've seen there, and over the number of years, they're all very well behaved. They're all taking notes on the different thing. They have teachers with them and everything. But there's just so many of them that if you have a tripod or something like that, you have to be concerned about them bumping it accidentally, because they're kids and they're looking all over the place.
Plus they're distracting the wildlife.
They're distracting the wildlife to a certain extent. So we usually try and be out of that area by 9:30, and the light's not good after that anyway. But we'll go to some other places where we're not as concerned about the light because we're in the shade most of the time or something like that. But that's a really nice area there for viewing the wildlife up close. Then as you go further down the road in the park, the next thing you would hit, I may have them backwards, you would hit Paheoki, and that boardwalk there will take you in, and you also have a higher observation. You have 2 levels there to observe from, and you can see out over the prairie, and you can get some really nice landscape shots there. You will see a lot of leading lines through there, and you can take that from a high position, and you can take that from a low position. I like the low position better. And you have nice, that's a good place for landscapes.
Okay.
And then you have Mahogany Hammock.
So you're just driving down this.
We're driving
this
down, like I said.
main road. What's the name of the main road? Do you remember?
Part of it's the Ingram Highway.
Okay. But it's not a highway. It's just a road.
It was a highway when they built it 100 years ago. It was a highway for them. It was probably a 1-lane dirt trail because Flamingo was a city. There was a fishing village, and this was the highway to get you down from, I guess, Miami and what have you to
Flamingo.
Okay.
Yeah. I did not know that.
Yeah, that was a
so
city
you're
there.
Driving down that main road.
Yeah.
And so Anhinga Trail is first, and maybe Paheoki, whatever order. But so, basically, you're going back to the road to go to all these different little...
They all drive off, and they may be a half a mile off the road or something like that. So Mahogany Hammock is again a whole different ecosystem here. Again, you have at Paheoki, you also had some cypress strand and things like that. Further down, you're going to hit Mahogany Hammock, which is a hardwood hammock. A hammock is a raised section from the Everglades, because the hardwoods need dry roots. Okay, unlike the cypress and what have you that can tolerate the wetlands. So it's dry. So it's a higher elevation. Sometimes as much as 2 or 3 inches higher. But I mean, that's all it really takes. The difference down there, you're talking a matter of inches difference as far as what kind of foliage you're going to see grow there. So the hardwood hammocks are dense, and there's a boardwalk through them. So you're walking through a hardwood forest there. You're going to see that's where you're going to see owls. You're going to see little tree frogs. You're going to see snails on the trees, all different colorful snails in there. This stuff you have to look for, because they don't have big signs saying see the snail or see the owl. So you have to pay attention and look, and you'll see that kind of thing in there. That's a really nice area there. We like to do that. Further down, there's a couple different ponds. Parottas Pond, you're going to see wood storks. They have a rookery way out. There's a little island out there, and you can see them flying back and forth to the rookery. That's interesting.
And wood storks are mostly here in the winter.
Yeah, they're mainly in the winter. I mentioned the Eco Pond earlier, I think. I think we talked about Eco Pond when we were talking about Flamingo. Maybe we didn't, but Eco Pond is down by Flamingo. And that's where you're typically going to see white pelicans or roseate spoonbills at certain times of year in January, February. They're liable to be down there, and you'll see them down there.
Okay.
So they're pretty cool to see, too. And you'll have flocks of them, so you'll see a lot of them. Now, the birds in the Everglades, since it's so spread out, they're not that familiar with people. So they're kind of skittish. other than the ones that you would see at Anhinga Trail. Shark Valley, the birds there are so used to humans. I've been up there photographing, and I've had little blue herons walk across my boots.
Oh my God!
You know, just another obstacle here. You know, don't bother me. I'm looking for fish, kind of thing. But down there, they're wild. They're not used to people, so they will take off. So you can only get so close to them. So you have the hardwood hammock there. You have a stand of dwarf cypress down there too, which is interesting. They're cypress trees, but they only grow about the height of a good Christmas tree, you know. And the reason is because they're limited by the amount of water they have there. They're not actually pygmy or something like that. They're just stunted growth because they don't have enough water in that particular location. But that's interesting to see too. There's several ponds down there you can go back to. There's a couple where you can canoe from. There's all kinds of hiking trails. My secret spot, I guess, is Pine Glades Lake, which is a fabulous place to shoot sunsets at. Galen Roll, the famous landscape photographer, that's who I found out about that place from, was in his writings. He said it was his favorite place in the park. So it took me some time to find it because it's not really on the maps. At least not named on the maps, and the road to go back to it has no signage on it at all.
So why is that? What's so good about that lake compared to the other ones?
Well, it's wide. There's nice rocks in the foreground. There's some nice foliage on the sides that you can do framing with, and the sunset is in the perfect spot to put it on like a rule of thirds line in the background, depending on where you are. So there's a number of views there, and usually there's nobody there.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if I see two people there, God, it's crowded. You know, geez, you know,
and you're talking January.
Yeah, I'm talking
peak season.
I'm talking peak season. One of the reasons is if we've had a dry, the road back there is horrible. If we've had a dry year, you can drive back in like our van or something like that. If it's been a wet year, you're going to need a 4x4 with a lot of ground clearance because it's rough, it's huge potholes in it, because it's limestone, and in places the limestone gets eaten away.
Yeah.
Okay. The limestone isn't flat because what happens is the decaying leaves and stuff like that are acidic, and they eat the limestone. So you get these pots in the limestone, so it's high and low, and it's tough driving back it, but it's really pretty if you're back there. If you can get back there, it's worth going back there for a sunset.
By the way, if anybody is interested in hiking in the Everglades in the summer, you have to note that limestone, we call it ankle twisting, because you're walking in those trails, especially if there's water and you can't see.
Yeah.
You could really break your ankles pretty easily.
Some of these holes are
They're
really
big.
deep, and the limestone is rough, so it's going to scrape and cut as well.
It's dangerous. You should never do it by yourself.
I generally, when I go into the Everglades, I usually have somebody who accompanies me.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
If I'm going, I mean, if I'm just going to go on a boardwalk or something.
No.
You know,
on our trips, we don't take people deep. But if you ever do decide to go deep, make sure you know that you can twist your ankle very easily. Don't go by yourself.
Just like you do hiking anywhere else, you let people know where you're going, how long you're going to be gone, and things like that, and you know, you take care of yourself. With the Everglades, the big thing is you've got to stay hydrated. That's what catches up on people, because they don't realize how the moisture is drawn. The heat draws the moisture out of you, and they don't drink enough, and then they get dizzy and they feel sick and stuff like that. You have to stay hydrated down there.
Okay,
and that's the big thing. That's really what kills a lot of people, is they don't stay hydrated.
All right, so let's talk about photography. Now, what kind of gear are you going to bring if you're going? Is it different from place to place, or? Well,
yeah, I usually have a variety. I'll have a long lens for birding, you know, so I'll bring my 150 to 600 Sigma, a lovely lens. I like that. So I'll bring that, and that'll give me the range I need for shooting birds and things like that. For landscapes, You know, there is no such thing as a landscape lens. It depends on the landscape.
Okay.
You might want to use a really wide angle lens, a 16 millimeter on a full frame camera, or you may want something in a 24 to 70 range, or a 105 or a 200. So I'll usually bring a variety depending on where I'm going. And I'd say most of the time when I'm shooting landscapes there, I'm using my 24 to 105 on a full frame camera, because that gives me enough variety. I can tighten in on a shot, or I can get wide enough usually.
Now, one of the nice things about where you go, if you're following that road and going off into the little branches off that road, is you don't have a lot of hiking involved.
No, no.
There's some beautiful landscapes right from...
Yeah, there's gorgeous landscapes right there. And in truth, once you get back on most of the hiking trails, you're enclosed.
You're in the woods.
You're in the woods kind of thing, so you don't have as much opportunity there. So you can get tremendous landscapes right from there. You can get tremendous landscapes right from Tamiami Trail on 41. Just pull over and get out of your car and set your tripod up and get a landscape. I have some really nice landscapes I've taken right from there. What I'll do too is, when we're talking about the size of the lens, a lot of time if I figure I'm going to make a decent sized photo, 2 foot by 3 foot or something like that, I'll do it as a panorama. I'll set up on a tripod and I'll take multiple shots that I can stitch together as a panorama. When I'm doing that, I always set my camera up vertical, portrait mode, right? Because that way I'm getting more detail in the height. When I put it together, right? So I'll stitch them together like that.
So you'll have more shots. You'll have 5 shots instead of 3 if you had done horizontal.
Exactly. But I'm getting more detail.
Then you'll have more pixels.
Yeah, I have more in the height. I have more pixels in the height because I have whatever that is, and I'll stitch them together. The stitching software today is great. The stuff in Lightroom, Photoshop. Almost anything will do a nice stitch job these days.
All right, so lenses all over the place. So if you're doing a dry, as you call a dry foot Everglades photo.
Yeah, if you're on one of my workshops and you get wet, I'm not doing my job, or you weren't paying attention, you stepped off the road.
But for that reason, you can bring a lot of gear.
Yeah.
So what else besides the lenses?
A tripod, remote cable release, circular polarizer.
Why do you bring a circular polarizer? I know you're a fanatic about that.
Well, a lot of what we're shooting is blades of grass or things like that, and certain times of day you're going to get a lot of specular highlights off of them. The circular polarizer is going to get rid of the specular highlights and saturate the colors. The only thing you have to watch with a circular polarizer, especially if you're shooting skies, is if you go wider than about a somewhere between 24 to 35 millimeter on a full frame, you start to get a tonality change across the sky, so it looks strange.
Okay.
And of course, if I'm stitching photos, I generally won't have a circular polarizer on there because it'll get weird between shots.
Okay.
So I won't use it for them. But I like to use a circular polarizer when I'm doing the landscapes when I can.
Okay.
So I'll bring that. I don't typically use graduated neutral density filters. I'll bracket and do it in post. But the Everglades is one of the few places where you can use a graduated because you have the sky, and you don't have the problem with the mountains sticking up into the transition zone, because it's basically flat there, so it's easier to use. They were made for there, I guess.
And if anybody's unfamiliar with what you're talking about,
yeah, we've well, if you're not familiar with it, we've done another. I think we did one of our short videos on that.
On neutral density
neutral
videos.
Density filters and everything.
Filters
in general.
Videos.
Yeah, we have something that either hasn't been released yet or is about to be released that has.
So basically, it's just darkening half.
Just darkening. Yeah, you're darkening half of the filter, like a pair of sunglasses on half of it. So you're darkening half, so you can get the brightness levels closer between the dark area and the bright area.
So the sky would normally be the bright area.
Yeah,
so you would put the darkening filter on the top of the sky, and what you're saying, because the Everglades is flat, it's nice because it just is a flat, it's a straight line.
Yeah, basically.
So it's harder to use in the mountains. So what about night photography in the Everglades?
It's great for that because the sky there is really dark. You're your biggest light source is Miami, which is, you know, I guess at that point you're 90 miles north or south of it, you know. And typically when you're shooting the southern sky. If you're shooting,
so you're shooting away from Miami.
You're shooting away from the light pollution is in back of you, and you're either shooting out into the Atlantic, or you're shooting out into the Gulf, or you're shooting to the south. So you're shooting into the darker areas. So it's a great place to do night sky photography.
Where's the best spot? I mean, are there best? I mean, not the best spot, really. But are there better spots than others?
No, I mean, down at Flamingo is nice because you can get the water in the shot and something in the foreground, you know, and you can always do the trait shot, you know, a lit up tent, you know, you could do something like that down there. But there's other things to put in the foreground. Some of the trees are very interesting, the cypress trees we have and things like that. You know, they can get pretty cool looking to put in the foreground, things like that. You get a nice reflection off the water. Or if you're more inland, you have some of the, maybe one of the boardwalks lit up in the shot, or just the sea of grass and just get some illumination on that. You know, you can take multiple photos for that.
Do you have to be camping to be there in the middle of the night?
No.
You can go anytime?
Yeah. You can't go into the campground without a camping permit, typically. Okay. And typically because they're concerned that you're in there to steal or something like that. No, Shark Valley to drive in, I think it's 7:30 to sunset or something like that. The lower entrance to the park, the main entrance down there, that is open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Wow. You can go in and out. Yeah. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Now, is there any food there? Can you tell I'm always worried about my stomach?
No.
No. So
again, you have a little thing there at Anhinga Trail that sells, you know, candy and ice cream. For a while, they had a little snack bar down at Flamingo. The last time I was there, that wasn't open. That got wiped out again after the last hurricanes, and they didn't bother to open that back up. So there's really nothing in the park.
Okay, so keep that in mind.
You bring your food in with you.
And water.
Yeah.
Lots of water.
Lots of water. There's a couple places. You can get water at Flamingo. You can get water at Anhinga Trail. You can get water at the main visitor center.
There are a lot of public bathrooms, too.
There are public bathrooms down there all over the place. Yeah, there's several different ones of them. They're all marked on the map where they are. So you have that kind of thing, too, for your comfort. Yeah.
Now, what about lightning? Okay, in the summer, it rains here every day, and there's lots of lightning, right? Right. Lightning capital of the United States is Florida, right?
Yeah, yeah. Most fatalities, too.
From lightning?
Yeah.
The most fatalities from lightning in the United States or in the world? Do you know?
At least the United States, and not the world.
I didn't know that. I didn't know, but I believe it.
A lot of golfers out there with their metal clubs.
Well, I know people on the beach. Well, I didn't personally know them, but people on the beach. Since I've lived in Naples, I think 3 or 4 people have been on the beach and died from lightning strikes. Yeah. It's not a good idea to be by the beach.
Yeah, well, it's funny. You look at the advice for lightning, and you don't want to be near a tree. You don't want to be out in a flat, plain area. So you can't be by trees. You can't be out in the open. You don't want to be sticking up past anything. You don't want to be on a hill. So
where are you going to go?
Basically is don't go out when there's lightning. Yeah. But you do. You want to take a photograph. The safest thing to do is take it from your car. If you can set your car in a position where you can shoot through the windshield, that's one way to do it. Another way is to set
How would you keep your camera steady?
Well, there's these mounts you can put on a windshield. It's a clamp that goes on a windshield, or you can get a beam. You know, they have bean bags, but they're not going to be stable. But there's actually clamps you can put on your windshield, and then lock the camera on. But of course, your window's halfway down, you know, and you're not going to want to have the car running, or you're going to get vibrations that are going to do it. Okay. But you could do that. An easier way to do is, while the lightning's still a safe distance away, you get your camera all set up, because you're basically taking a picture of an area. You're not moving it around. So you get your camera set up, you have your remote release, and you get back in the car, and you shoot from the car.
Oh, that
or
sounds
you know,
like
something like that. Or if there's another, you know, you can shoot from a shelter. There's a few wooden shelters down there, things like that. Well, you can shoot from there, and that's fairly safe.
Okay.
But if you're standing out there on the beach with your metal camera, you're the highest thing around. You know, I mean, you may as well stick a lightning rod on your head. You know.
Wow.
You know, it's sometimes you got to say, is it really worth the risk to get this photo?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And you got to think about that. But people don't think about it; they just do it, and the odds are with you that you're not going to get hit with lightning.
Right.
But you know.
But the odds are the worst here.
Yeah, you know, the odds are terrible to get hit by lightning. But we go out there, the odds are even worse for getting a lottery ticket, but we buy lottery tickets. So,
yeah,
you know.
that's true. All right, well, speaking of dangers, what kind of dangers are there out there in the Everglades?
Well, it's
mosquitoes.
It's a wilderness. Well, yeah, because there for a while they had that dengue.
Oh yeah, that.
Dengue,
I forgot the virus. And
dengue,
what was it called?
Dengue fever. Yeah. The mosquitoes, but that's.
And what was the other one? Zika.
Zika. So you know, you have that at different times. So there's always that, but you would have that problem wherever you are, in Naples or Miami or wherever. It's the wilds. You have to watch where you're walking. There are snakes.
And we have quite a few poisonous snakes, right?
There are poisonous snakes.
I know we have rattlesnakes. We have
right.
Water moccasins. That's the same
right.
snake. We have the red touches yellow. You're a dead fellow. I don't know what that's called. Is that a king snake?
I don't remember.
I just know red touches yellow. You're a dead fellow.
But you have the snakes. You have the alligators, of course.
Alligators and crocodiles.
You have,
now crocodiles are more aggressive than alligators, is what I've heard.
So, very much so. Yeah.
So you want to be extra careful if you see a crocodile.
Yeah. The alligators are pretty much. You don't bother them; they won't bother you.
As long as it's not a mother.
As long as you're not.
A mother with babies is always going to be protective.
And that's for any kind of wildlife.
Right.
Or any kind of life in general.
What about panthers? Will they attack you?
They are very shy.
Yeah.
You're lucky if you ever see one. Rather as far as that goes,
What about bobcats? Actually, when I first moved to Florida 26 years ago, somebody got attacked by a bobcat at Collier Seminole State Park.
Well, there again, that's atypical behavior.
That's the only time I've ever heard of that.
That's atypical behavior. Typically, those animals want less to do with you than you with them.
Yeah.
You're not really what they perceive to be food.
What about bears?
Bears, again, there's bears there, but again, they're pretty much going to leave you alone.
Yeah, they mostly just walk away from you.
Yeah, they just walk away. As long as you're not being confrontational, most wildlife anywhere really is not going to.
For me, the main thing. Now, I do like to hike in the wet, as you know, and you just have to really watch your step.
Yeah.
Because you could step on one of those snakes very easily, because they are very well hidden.
Yeah.
And now we've got pythons.
And this is, invasive species, and there's a lot of invasive species in the Everglades that are becoming more and more of a problem. The Burmese python is probably the worst. Since they've been in there, just in the time, I've been going to the Everglades steady for 10 years or so, and the wildlife count that you see, the number of birds, is way down from what it was 10 years ago. And I'm told by talking to the people that know such things that the count of mammals, the possums and the things like that, rabbits, all that kind of stuff is.
We have an Everglades mink.
Is way down. I didn't know that, really. So that's way down too, and it's these pythons are just wicked. Now they're trying different ways. There's bounties on catching them. It's open season on them all the time. They're trying different ways of neutering the females. They're trying to do and things like that, and they're trying all different ways, but they just seems to be
they're winning.
Unlike some of the foliage, the Melaleuca trees, they pretty much got that under control.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of them, but they planted them to dry up the Everglades, and they realized how stupid that was, and then they had to take them all out. All right, so you do Everglades 4-day tours just in January, February?
Usually that time of year, January, February, March is when we do our 4-day tours, because that's the ideal season for photography down there, for the type of photography.
Except the summer, which nobody wants to.
No,
we can't sell them in the summer, even though the photography for landscapes would be better if people would come here in the summer.
That's when I photograph, is in the summer.
And then they want those pictures. It's like, you got to come in August.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I photograph in the summer, you know. And as long as I don't make the mistake of taking somebody down, that they get out of the car and say, "Oh my God, I can't deal with all these mosquitoes," and get back in. You know?
Yeah, you got to have a bug jacket if you're going to be here in the summer.
Yeah. So, but that's, you know, we kind of focus on that January, February, March time frame, because it's ideal there for photography. You're getting good landscapes. You're getting good wildlife photography. The park is so big that no place is ever crowded. You know, it's not like being out at Bosque during the time of year when you got all these photographers and you don't have enough space to put your tripod down because you're all squeezed in shoulder to shoulder. You know, you have room and you can get around. So it's nice that way too. It's not.
And we limit them to 5 people.
Well, yeah, I only take 5 people. That's
they're nice small workshops.
Yeah, because I'm teaching them, and you know, I teach an individual at different skill levels.
Yeah. Now, I'm not sure when this is going to air. You don't know either. But I think it's going to be too late to sign up for anything this year. Yeah. So they sell out. You usually do 3, and they all sell out quickly. So just keep that in mind to the audience. And then, of course, if you go to understandphotography.com, we do an awful lot of day trips through the Everglades. Joe usually leads them. Sometimes I do. We do private tours in the Everglades. We actually do have a permit for Everglades National Park, which we are one of 2 photographers listed. Even though there are thousands of photographers doing it, they're all doing them illegally. We are actually paying that incredibly expensive permit fee to go. And then thanks Joe.
Oh, my pleasure.
That was
awesome.
Fun
to be here again. Always like coming on the show.
Audience, again, if you would leave us a review on iTunes, we really appreciate it. And please check out, join our mailing list. If you go to understandphotography.com, the first thing you're going to see, it says click here for freebies. If you choose any of the freebies, you're going to put in your email, you'll be put on our mailing list, and then you'll get first notice when we do announce the 2021 Everglades tours. So you can sign up right away. Of course, you got to see what other tours we have going on. We're probably going to go to Tuscany every year for a little while anyway, because that tour is amazing. So check that out too. I'm Peggy Farron. Thanks for joining us on the Understand Photography Show. We'll see you next Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.